Welcome to the Story Selling Podcast, the show that explores the art and science of authentic marketing for purpose-led entrepreneurs. With me, your host and founder of the Story Selling Lab, Rob Drummond. This episode of the Story Selling Podcast is sponsored by my agency, the Story Selling Lab, where I help purpose-led entrepreneurs to generate a consistent flow of great clients using LinkedIn ads without funding the big tech Christmas party. To learn more, head to storyselling.biz. On with the show. At the start of 2023, I was managing some LinkedIn ads for a client who was generating leads. So a lead for them was somebody downloading their white paper. We were generating leads for about £150 per lead. If that sounds eye-wateringly high to you, then, if one of these leads converted into a client, that would have paid for the entire year's worth of ad spend. So it's quite high value stuff. At the time, we were mostly running single image ads in the newsfeed to their potential clients. We'd also dabbled with some of the other ad formats. We'd run carousel ads where you can display multiple images in the same ad. Hadn't really worked. Doesn't really work as well. Usually you're better running with the single image format. We'd also tested the messaging ad format, and it just, it hadn't really worked. We hadn't really seen any results. So mostly we were running ads in the newsfeed using single image ads, and it was going okay. At the start of 2023, LinkedIn announced that they were replacing the message ad format with a new ad format called conversation ads. A conversation ad essentially is the next generation of messaging ads. To the end user, it just looks the same. It looks like a message ad. It shows up as a sponsored message in their LinkedIn inbox. But it works in a slightly different way. So they interact with the message by selecting buttons that you pre-configure. I'll go into all of this in a moment, but it works more like a chat bot. And when I read this from LinkedIn, I kind of rolled my eyes. I'm experienced enough as an ads manager to know that when one of the ad networks introduces a new ad format, I normally roll my eyes because ad formats come, ad formats go. Usually in beta, they're not very good. I was like, ugh. So, but I thought, let's go and test it. It was no real sweat off my nose to go and create a little campaign. I put one ad. I didn't spend very long writing the ad. We just created an ad that was based on the existing copy we were using in the single image ads. I came in the next morning, and the cost per lead had gone down from £150 per lead on the single image ads to about £38 per lead in our new conversation ads campaign. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. There's nothing like results to make you reassess your take on things. So that's the topic of today's episode, is conversation ads. And I want to give you a high level introduction today to what they are, how they work. Because when I speak to clients about conversation ads, when I speak to clients who aren't familiar with the various ad formats, most people tend to assume that a conversation ad is you paying to start a conversation on LinkedIn in your message inbox. That's what you would think they are, but that's actually not what they are. You can't run conversation ads to start a manual conversation. There isn't actually a field where somebody can enter a free form reply to you and hit reply. They can only select the options that you pre-configure, hence why it's more like a chatbot. So on this episode, I just wanted to lay out, yes, generally the results have been better than the single image ads, than the newsfeed ads. Not always. There's been cases recently where I've set up conversation ads for a client and it's not performed as well as the single image ads. So there's definitely, it's not a concrete set in stone thing, but if you're brand new to LinkedIn ads, you've got a little testing budget, you want to invest a bit of money to see, can you reach your ideal clients with a message that really resonates with them and a message that's going to get them to raise their hand and say, yeah, actually, I'd be interested in hearing more from you about your topic, then I think conversation ads are definitely the place to start. On this episode, as always, we're going to cover 3 ideas. The 3 ideas are cold email, the second idea is the hook, and the third idea is conciseness. So let's jump in and have a look at the first idea. I would like you to think about conversation ads as being more like doing cold email than it is like running ads. Running ads on social media feeds or running ads on the Google search results page. Conversation ads are more like sending cold messages to people. If you've ever done any cold email marketing where you've emailed a list of email addresses that you've rented or bought or borrowed, there's a grey area of legality about this. In the UK, at least, it is, as long as you're doing it for B2B purposes, it is possible to send cold emails on a B2B basis. I've done a bit of B2B emailing in the past, usually at a client's request, not so much off my own back. It's not really a format that I think because I don't like to receive cold emails, I then don't like to send cold emails. So it's not really a format that I've ever really gone down the rabbit hole with. But in the client projects that I worked on where we were sending cold emails to people who didn't know us, the emails that worked, the emails that generated some response, were the ones that had a curiosity, benefit-laden subject line. They had a strong opening sentence. They didn't open the email by saying, "Oh, I'm really sorry to bother you. This is only going to take 5 seconds of your time." No, the emails opened up by some kind of hook, some kind of statement, some kind of provocation even, perhaps some kind of little story even, that hooked the reader into the content of the email. The emails that converted were also generally on the shorter side. We weren't sending people long messages, especially if you compare cold emails to a warm email strategy where you're emailing people who already, to some degree, know you. They've opted in, they've been receiving emails from you. You send them a sales email, that email's going to be quite long. It's perhaps going to be like 1,000 words. Cold emails need to get to the point. You can't take liberties with their attention. Like, their attention is fleeting anyway, and you've actually, in some respects, had to try and grab it by using this opening hook at the start of the email. But those were the emails that generated the best response. It was generally short, it was to the point, it was problem-led. It was like, are you suffering from this problem? This is how we help our clients using this particular mechanism. Would you be interested in having a quick conversation? Would you be interested in learning more? That kind of approach is what I've seen has worked the best on LinkedIn conversation ads. So with LinkedIn conversation ads, it is like doing cold email in that you're sending messages to people who don't know you, have no prior relationship with you. But it's better, in my opinion, it's better than cold email because, well, first and foremost, you're not at risk of blacklisting your domain by people hitting the "this is spam" button. There's no risk of that. There's no legal grey area because it's an ad platform. You're sending, you're paying for ads, so there's no grey area about it. By people using LinkedIn, they kind of consented to receive messages in their inbox. And you're really trying to grab people's attention quickly with your conversation ads. So the important parts of the conversation ad, so you can still enter a subject line, which will appear in their inbox. The first sentence and the first paragraph then is critical. And this is really the second idea I wanted to cover today, which is the hook, is that you have to have a hook into your message. That hook can be a variety of things. Most of the time what I'm doing with my clients is we're opening the message with a problem-led statement. So we're saying something like, "Hi, Rob, I'm writing to you in case you're suffering from this particular problem." Or have you experienced recently that, cost per lead on LinkedIn has gone up, or people aren't engaging as much with your social posts? Have you seen that even though your network is bigger, you don't get the same organic reach even when you post every day? That might be the kind of thing that we might lead with in the opening statements, because in the opening statement, you're trying to get them to nod along and say, yes, actually, that is a problem that is middle of mind, front of mind. It's something that's in their consciousness, and you've opened your message and you said, is this a problem to you? Are these symptoms of the problem familiar? And for the right person, they're going to nod and go, actually, I wasn't going to read the sponsored message, but now I am, because you're speaking to me about a problem that is currently on my mind. So for you, you have to think about, what problems do your ideal clients face as it relates to this service you provide? What problems do they face that are, if not front and center of their attention, they're at least in the background, they're whirring away, they're things that they're aware of, because you have to speak to those problems first. That's probably going to be the best way to hook someone into your message. There are some different variations. You can go with like a results-led approach. You can lead in with a story, which is a less direct approach. There's different ways of approaching the hook, and we're going to explore some of these ways over the next few episodes, where I'm going to share a few specific templates, a few specific formula for writing an effective conversation ad. I'm going to talk through what's worked for my clients. And I think, just as a top-level observation, what has worked for some clients hasn't worked for others. Most of the time, I would say, we're opening the message, we're leading with the most burning problem that's likely on their mind, and we're speaking to that. We're then saying, we can provide this outcome, and we're talking about a mechanism of how we provide it, and the mechanism should be tied to you and your uniqueness. We have this unique way that we help our clients to generate more leads on LinkedIn for an acceptable cost per lead. My mechanism is using conversation ads authentically and effectively. That's the mechanism of how I go about doing it. At the end of the message, you then invite people to take a next step. And the invitations that work with conversation ads are usually inviting people to your list. It could be inviting them to download a guide or a white paper. It could be asking them to register for a webinar, but generally that doesn't work as well because it's more commitment. So you want to make a low commitment offer at the end of your message. It should be for the person who has resonated with the problem that you've described. The next step should be a no-brainer. You'd be like, I don't expect you to trust me right now, but subscribe to my email list. Over the coming weeks, I'll share everything that I know about whatever it is about building trust authentically with your ideal clients. So that was the hook. That was the second idea. The third idea I want to touch on briefly is conciseness. And this comes back to the old copywriting thing of, it's much harder to write a short message than it is to write a long one. As a rule of thumb, you want to be writing conversation ad messages that are probably no more than 3 paragraphs long. If it runs into a 4th paragraph, you're probably taking too many liberties with someone's attention. And I've been testing various things. I've been testing shorter messages than that. I've got some clients where we're really just writing 2 paragraphs. And the 2 paragraphs go from problem to solution with mechanism in the middle. It's actually harder to write an ad that's only 2 paragraphs long, because you've got to really make sure that every word counts. One of my earliest business mentors, who's still a friend, is a guy called Ben Hunt, who at the time was a web designer, and Ben wrote a book called Save the Pixel. And he argued that effective web design really needed to make sure that every pixel on the page was doing a job and pulling its weight and moving your web visitor towards the action that you want. And that's the case in a conversation ad as well. And you really need to save the pixel in the same respect, where every word that you use is deliberate and is placed to move people towards taking the action at the end of the message. It takes a bit of work. I wouldn't expect to write a winning message straight off the bat. Some other observations are that it can take a bit of time to find the right message, and you don't know what wording, what problem statements, what problem descriptions. You just don't know what's going to resonate best with your audience, because you are not them. As much as you think you understand them, all you really know, as Ben used to say, all you really know about them is that they're not you. You understand the problem intimately, they don't. You understand all of the terminology, they don't. So it makes it quite hard to get the message right. So you might have to go through a phase of testing different messages. When people respond to the message, they will click one or more pre-configured buttons that you set up. And those buttons can either send them a second message, hence the conversation aspect of the ad, which kind of works like a chatbot, or you can open a LinkedIn hosted lead form where they can enter their details to subscribe to your list or to get the lead magnet or to download the white paper, or you can send them to your website. I'll talk in a future episode about what buttons I generally put on my ads and why I usually put 2 buttons instead of 1. I'll have 2 buttons. One opens the lead form where they can download the white paper or subscribe to my email list. In my case, I'm usually offering my conversation ad template pack, so they can click a button to download the template pack, and it opens a form hosted by LinkedIn where the contact's details are pre-populated using details that LinkedIn already knows about the contact. So it's quite a low friction way to generate leads. What I'm seeing from conversation ads is that the percentage of people who open the LinkedIn hosted lead form, the percentage of people who fill in the form is much higher than some of the other ad formats. I don't fully know why that is. I might explore that more in a future episode, but the lead form completion rate is much higher generally than single image newsfeed ads. So that's mostly what I'm doing with my buttons, is that I'm sending people to a LinkedIn hosted form. I usually have a second button where I send people to my website, and again, we'll talk about that some more on a future episode. So in recap, if you know your ideal clients are on LinkedIn, you want to test running ads, you want to reach them at an affordable cost per result, you want to grow your database of future potential clients, then I would suggest that conversation ads are the place to start. I've seen I don't really want to put specific numbers to this, but I've had clients recently that have been generating leads at a lower cost per lead than what you might usually pay for a click on LinkedIn. That's how good the results have been. And the reason that the cost per lead is so low is because the lead form completion rates are much higher. In some cases, we're seeing 80 or 90% of people who open the lead form are filling it in, which is why you get much lower cost per leads, potentially. I hope this has been an interesting introduction to LinkedIn conversation ads. I hope this has whet your appetite somewhat. Over the coming episodes, I'm going to explore template by template the different structural templates that I've included in my LinkedIn conversation ad template pack. Speaking of which, if you haven't got a copy of my LinkedIn conversation ad template pack, you can grab one for free by subscribing to the podcast at storyselling.biz/podcast. When you sign up, I'll also send you my lead incubator email sequence blueprint, which is what I recommend you send people via email after they've responded to your LinkedIn ad and after they've subscribed to your email marketing list. If you haven't got a copy of my book, Simple Story Selling, you can grab a copy from that either on my website at storyselling.biz/book, or you can find it on Amazon. And finally, if you'd like help with your LinkedIn ads, the place to go is storyselling.biz/LinkedIn-ads. On the next episode, we'll delve into what generally has been my most successful conversation ad template, which is the problem-led approach. So I'll speak to you next week. Thanks. If you've enjoyed this episode of the Story Selling Podcast, you'll want to make sure you're on my email list. Head to storyselling.biz/podcast, where you can opt in to future episode notifications and also download my lead incubator blueprint. You can also find my book, Simple Story Selling, on Amazon in paperback and Kindle formats. Thank you for listening, and I'll speak to you next time.